Last time I was on camera was a couple days ago, I think. And I had these cleats I was putting on the wall. And since then, I've hopped on the internet and looked at other people's projects. And I am questioning my life decisions now. But I think after looking at quite a few people who were like, don't do what I did, which I know is how the YouTube algorithm sort of feeds these projects out, I have come to the conclusion that everybody's got their own different way of doing it. So if it matters at all to anyone out there who are looking at it and going, from what I do today, that you think I'm doing something wrong, I mean, let me know in the comments. I'm always open to conversation. But what we're going to be doing today is trying to make a rack that I can use for the time being that mounts to the French cleats and hangs all of the garden tools, which eventually will be transferred to a shed on the outside, which I don't have built yet. And if you're sitting here going, John, you're making a French cleat wall, it's going to catch a lot of dust. I just want to be clear. This French cleat wall isn't about displaying all my fancy tools. I don't have really fancy tools. This display wall, this French cleat wall is going to be about holding things. Kind of like French cleats were originally designed for being on a ship and like having a place to hook stuff really easily because it might need to move around. In this instance, I'm just going to do that because this area might need to move around a bit. This is, I think, I'm not really sure. I have several of these kind of pitchforks now. I think like 3 of them, and one of them still out at the garden. It's frozen in the ground. Oh, this one's from my neighbor. Okay, yeah, so when my neighbors, when they moved to Florida after the pandemic, they gave me a handful of these tools, and I kept the ones that weren't falling apart. It's the thing when you live in kind of the rural zone, any of the elderly people in your area start looking at their garage and going, I need space. John's working in the field. Hey, maybe he'll take my stuff. Sometimes I do. And sometimes I'm really glad I did. Like these shovels, this one I bought, again, it's like a $10 shovel back in the day. I think it's like 20 or 30 bucks now. Don't fall. That was a regular occurrence before having hooks on the wall. So that is why we're doing this. All right, shovel on the wall. This short shovel, which clearly needs to be cleaned off, I use not as frequently, but it does happen. It's a little bent on the end. We used them to go out and dig up carrots. My wife had told me to leave the carrots in the garden after Thanksgiving there, waiting for them to really bulk out. And so I don't know if you guys saw my short, but we made the carrots that we grew ended up looking like balls because the soil surface, or the nutrients are mostly at the soil surface rather. And went out there to get them the other day and the ground was frozen. So that was, don't wait too long to get your carrots out of the ground. It's funny, I had that issue because last night we went from 4 inches of snow on the ground to it rained all night and now there's no snow out and it's 50 degrees. Anyhow, I'm gonna have to throw a wire wheel on this one and get it cleaned up. This is a pretty decent shovel, although it's in pretty rough shape because I've been using it for making cement. My neighbor lady got divorced and she gave me all her husband's tools, and some of them were kind of junk, but this one's a fiberglass shovel and it's a pretty good deal. I just need to keep it cleaned. These need to get cleaned up as well. I'll throw these over with the garden tools. I think this was another one from the divorcee. They gave me those. And I bought these because very first day we were here, the yard was all overgrown with, what is it called? Oriental bittersweet. It is a vine. It's not native, but they used to use it back in like the 20s to make wreaths. And so a lot of people have it around here and it chokes out your plants. It's kind of like kudzu down in the south, but it's pretty virulent. And I ended up having to kill it with herbicide, which I'm not a big fan of putting herbicide in the yard. We'll use some of this old wormwood. It's not really wormwood. It's barnwood, but it's got all these little worm holes in it. It's not very strong. So let's get these out here. Wobbles together. By the way, if I haven't introduced them yet, at some point I might introduce you to my self-made sawhorses. I made them out of junk the very first day we moved here. I thought I was only going to use them for like a day, and they have lasted for 5 years. They fold. One of them is named Wobbles. I don't know what to name the other one. I saw this guy did racks where he mounted them. The racks were vertical, but they had slots for horizontal mounting. So they, the tools would hang off of the shelf in these really nice looking like hooks on the wall, kind of like you might expect from like a fantasy game with like spears or something. And I like that idea because I don't want something where I have to lift the tool up and slot it down into something, because if I do that, then I can't take advantage of the space above there, which I want to put cabinets up there. So having them sideways would be nice, but if I do sideways with just one per slot like he had, then I'm not gonna have enough room here and I'm gonna take up a ton of extra space. Also, if I do sideways, I gotta do ones that are low, like down into my waist height, or maybe just at my waist height to down here. So these 3 slats here. And if I'm doing sideways, then that's not a lot of room. I saw another guy who had a project in his shed, and he set up ones that hooked on by their heads. So they were held in like a bracket, basically. And I've seen a lot of them sold at the stores like that too. And I think for the time being, that's probably going to be what I end up going for, just because it allows me to stack like all of the rakes together. I have about a foot that I can work with, and I have to make sure that whatever is in this area, if it's a hook or a rake or anything like that, it doesn't stick out past that foot, because I need to be able to allow moving a vehicle in here if I need to work on it, or if my wife wants to park out of the snow in the winter time. I'm hoping that won't be a thing we have to do, but that is a possibility. But this is an old drawer front that I kept from when we moved in the house. The right side's full of nails. Not fun. Got all sorts of junk on it, duct tape and everything. But it's a nice piece of wood. It's pretty solid. So all I need to do now then is, out of this piece of wood, design a form where the wood that's pointed towards the wall is the end grain, and the bracket is the long grain. That way the wood will hold together a little bit better, I think. Wish I had two views of this. Sacrificial board for this first one. This is, I don't want to use any nice material until I'm sure I know what I'm doing. So these are my other two sacrificial boards, which we will use to make other brackets. It's kind of a neat wood. I think I was just keeping it because I thought it was neat, but it's full of nails and might as well use it. Now I got to design something that makes sense, is easy to cut, and I'm trying to think about like cutting it. I think I'll use, actually I know exactly what I'm going to use. There we go. So this is my scroll saw. It's Sears. It's a Craftsman 16-inch scroll saw from 1983 or something like that. I haven't changed the blade on this since the 80s. Actually, that's not true. I'm sure I've changed it. I don't remember when. Oh, that's fantastic. Wow, that's some memories. And that should do the trick. I can tell you this right now. Clearly, this project is not an AI-generated video. Okay. I think these are from college, so this is like from 20 years ago, but I got these French scroll things. And so they're just for like shaping the curves a little bit. Okay, it's a decent amount of meat there, something like that. So what if I just go like that? Get the curve to come down a little bit. And is that a good look? And instead of having a point at the end, I'm going to go ahead at that level and then curl it back. Go down a little bit lower with that. Okay, cool. That way I'm not running into any points in the garage. But this should be the template. Okay, you know, the bracket piece here going in off the back right there, and I'll have enough meat to run some pretty long screws in. I'd like to do some like 3-inch deck screws to run them in there. That way that's pretty strong. And then off the bottom, I'm going to have to make sure that either this touches the next cleat down so that's nice and flush. And if it doesn't, then I'm going to want to put in a little bit of a block there to keep the angle from twisting once it's on the wall. But I like this design. It's kind of neat. All right. I made this little bracket so I could hang it on the wall, but it's also really good for keeping it solid. Well, that was kind of loud and a little out of focus, but I think I did it. Turned out pretty good. At this point, I don't really have a whole lot of like woodworking tools. I just have like digging in the yard tools. If you were going to do this and like make it pretty, first off, I wouldn't recommend this shape because it looks like a finger and that could be problematic for some people. But I would recommend getting a, what do they call it? A drum sander if you're going to do rounds like this, because doing it with a square, what is this? I don't know, vine brady sander thing isn't very easy. So that's basically what I'm making. This is effectively 3 inches apart there. So one there. All right, I will be right back. I got to cut those. All right, just for this one, because I'm not sure of the design, we're going to go ahead and use these. Hey, look at that. Right down the middle. Perfect. Now, let's do the other one. Nice. Hey, there's a thing I made. It's twisted enough, or it's pulling together enough that it's kind of splaying down at the end, but it seems strong enough for now. And that might be okay that it's splayed. It'll make it easier to throw things in there. Oh, too many things. All right, I might have to adjust this later on, but first things first, we're gonna get the rakes on the wall, I think, except for this one. Yeah, let's take a look and see. Yeah, it's got some heft to it. I don't wanna twist it too far. By the way, I saw some guys saying that you needed to put 2 screws in these. I'm gonna have to do that later. I need to get another box of screws because I only have like 6 or 7 left on that set. Let's go with the big one first. That was the plan, I think. Oh yeah, nice. Nicely done. All right, cool. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video for now and make the other 2 and then get them up on the wall. So at least you know how the project works and what I'm doing. Oh, you have no idea how happy I am that worked the first time out. Okay, so for one day, I'm pretty happy with what came out. So you saw those weird shaped like hanger things ended up being really good because look, this is all of those rakes and I can lift it up. If I needed to move them all at once for some reason, I can move them around, shifting it around and then just like hang them on the wall. And then I've got all of the shovels, including the snow shovels on one thing. Oh, just make sure I don't break anything weird here. So this is all of them and including the post hole digger and everything is on one. And I put that down pretty low because it doesn't need to be up high. Seems to be holding pretty well. And then you can't really see it over in the corner over here. So let me get this off the wall to show you. This one's pretty heavy. So I had to make the bracket just a little bit wider, but this thing's actually very happy. I'm very happy with what happened here. So I've got a sledge, I've got a pickaxe, I have 2 axes, and at the very end, this little tiny shovel. And that'll get moved when I get the Maddox back up here, because I think I can fit the sledge, pickaxe, 2 axes, and a Maddox on one of these brackets. And this can sit like 3 or 4 feet off the ground over here on one of the lower clips. And it's just out of the way. And honestly, I'm very happy with that. So I was worried about the width of this. If I stagger them in height, like put one low, medium, and high, then the rakes can overlap over here. And the only difficulty there is the post hole digger having that wide handle. Dude, you have no idea. Like, I gotta say, I took some of this other stuff, the extraneous stuff was never on the wall in the first place. It was just like chucked in here. So like the fact that I was able to take what used to take up this entire wall widthwise and tack it into like less than 3 feet. The fact that I can do that right now, that is awesome. Hope I can cut this down into being a video that's less than half an hour. Otherwise, I'm sure it's gonna be boring to watch, but you have no idea how much of a blessing this feels like to me to see this space get used this way. And I think I'll end up doing French cleats in the garden shed because this is fantastic. Wish I'd done this 5 years ago. Thank you for tuning in. My name is John Decker. This has been the workshop project, and it's gonna be an ongoing series just because I have to spend a little bit of time here and there on it. But please subscribe, follow along. Let me know in the comments if you've got any ideas for me, I guess. I'm working on just maintaining the cleanliness of this moving forward. And that's gonna take a little bit of effort because of what this barn actually is. And oh my goodness, I have so much to do. I just have so much going on and piles and piles of things that over the last 5 years have just begun accumulating in here. And I really, really look forward to having this all cleaned up. All right, thanks, bye.